animal production, which lead to an artificial insemination. I am your teacher, Richard Nieras, hoping that you will understand the content of this video lesson seriously and religiously, so that you will learn something from this lesson and you can apply it for your future. Our lesson for today covers the knowledge, skills, and attitude required in becoming efficient in conducting heat detection to determine if the female animal is on standing heat. Good luck, God bless, and keep safe. Our objective for today is to conduct heat detection as to determine if the animal is on standing heat.
In this lesson, you will learn how to conduct heat detection to determine if the animal is on standing heat. Now, what is heat detection? So, heat detection is the process of identifying which females are receptive to mating. Okay, so accurate and consistent detection of estrus is necessary, class. So take note of this. Accurate and consistent detection of estrus is necessary to ensure insemination occurs near the time of ovulation and to identify open females to debrief. Okay? So, when errors in detection of estrus occurs, what will happen? So there will be reduced reproductive performance and increased herd non-productive days of swine breeding program. So remember, class, that since accurate heat checks are so vital, all individuals involved must know the typical signs that females approaching estrus in their herd exhibit and how to best use a bore to stimulate females to express estrus. Okay? So, a sexually mature female pig in good health should cycle every 3 weeks. So remember, every 3 weeks if she is not pregnant or lactating. So let us discuss the steps to identifying heat. So remember, it is all about detection of estrus of a swine female. Number 1, manage active bore exposure to female by providing nose-to-nose contact. So manage the active bore to expose to the female by providing nose-to-nose contact between the boar and a female swine. So ideally, this involves full contact between the boar and a female. However, fins line exposure will suffice. So meaning, you can also manage the boar outside the fins of a female swine as long as you will provide a nose-to-nose contact between them, between the boar and a female swine. Okay? So number 2, a stuck person should rub the female side and apply slight back pressure. This action emulates the boar actions of nudging and rooting the female's side and flank to encourage a standing response. So in number 2, you will rub the female side and apply slight back pressure. Okay? Number 3, stuck person should press fist below the vulva and thumb check the vulva for a sticky viscous. This action emulates the boar's nosing of the vulva as he detects the elevated temperature of secretions, or rather elevated the temperature and secretions of the female in estrus. Okay? Did you understand? Number 4. Stuck person tugs or lifts the female's flanks and rubs the underline. As oxytocin is released, naturally, she will stand rigid or lock up. This action emulates the boar shoving, rooting, and lifting the female, with special emphasis in the flank area. Number 5. If the female exhibits signs of estrus, remember, if the females exhibit signs of estrus or begin to stand rigid, the stockman can grasp the female's back and increase pressure or sit astride to confirm a standing response. Okay? So the boar would naturally make attempts to mount and test the standing response. Once mounted, what will happen? The weight of the boar is upon the female and his front feet will clutch the female's sides and he will thrust, further stimulating the females. Okay? Next. Okay. So now let's go to when to conduct heat detection of a swine. So ideally, estrus is detected twice daily. Remember, estrus is detected twice daily in an attempt to accurately identify its onset. So the estrus detection should be performed 8 to 12 hours apart. Remember class, 8 to 12 hours apart. Females should be segregated from boar contact for a minimum of 1 hour prior to estrus detection. Okay? So questions? Okay. There are certain days in the female's reproductive stage which should be a focus for heat detection. In the gelt, for example, these dates would be 21 to 24 days post-movement or mixing and the subsequent 21 days periods, plus or 3 minus days. For wind sows, estrus would normally be detected 4 to 8 days post-weaning, as well as 21 and 42 days post-mating. Positive, negative 3 days. Open sows are those with no previous documentation of it or recent weaning should be checked daily. Remember class, open sows are those with no previous documentation of it or recent weaning should be checked daily. Okay? So, since we are talking when to conduct heat detection, another factors are the coolest hours of the day are ideal for heat detections. So the coolest hours of the day. Sows and boars are more active and exhibit longer heat response during the morning hours. So females must also be in a good state of well-being and physical condition. Okay? So when you conduct heat detection, the coolest hour of the day, especially in the morning, are more desirable time to detection of heat of a swine. Okay? So, standing heat is a physical expression of the female's release of oxytocin, increased level of estrogen, state of ovulation, and receptivity to mating. Oxytocin is a naturally occurring hormone which, when released, causes strong pulsing contractions of the uterus, which aid in transport of the bore semen. The wave-like pulsations also cause strong rigidity of the muscles, a response commonly known as standing heat. So, this standing response allows the female withstand the bore's weight during the breeding process. Okay? Did you understand? Okay. And remember that the expression and duration of estrus is affected by many factors. Number 1, include the age or parity, the season or the temperature, the genetic composition, the body condition of his wife, nutrition, and previous exposure to a boar. The display of estrus typically lasts no more than 48 hours in gilts and 38 to 64 hours in sow. So remember, how many hours in gilt? In gilt, rather, more than 48 hours and 38 to 64 hours in sows. Although there is variation between farms and individual females, the lock-up period of standing heat lasts 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the level of stimulation received, the energy received of the female, and the time elapsed since the lasting standing heat and the subsequent refractory period. Ovulation will occur from 36 to 42 hours after the onset of estrus, sooner in gelt than sow. Okay, did you understand? Okay. Signs of estrus. So first, estrus is defined as a period of sexual receptivity and ovulation during which the female will accept the male and is capable of conceiving. So estrus defined as a sexual receptivity and ovulation. Okay, class? So the ultimate signs that confirms a gelt or a sow is in estrus is immobilization. Remember, there will be an immobilization when confirming the swine is on standing heat. There will be an immobilization or standing in response to back pressure from a boar, another gelt or sow, or from a person. However, there are several other behavioral and physical changes that may be observed hours or even days before the onset of the standing. Okay? Number 1 signs of estrus: swelling and reddening. 2 to 3 days before onset of estrus, increasing estrogen levels from developing ovarian follicles stimulate increased blood pressure, blood flow rather, and fluid retention in the reproductive tract, and cause the vulva and clitoris to swell and turn red. This is commonly observed in gelt 1 and 2, center gelt. This one. Example of behavioral and physical signs of approaching estrus in gelt. Number 1, the vulva swells. and ridden significantly in geld. Number 2, the center geld. Number 3, the ridden in sow. Okay? Next, mucus discharge. Number 2 signs of estrus is the mucus discharge. Clear sticky mucus may drip and hang from the vulva in response to the increasing level of estrogen. A small sample can be smeared in the thumb even before a significant amount collects on the vulva, and the press and stretch repeatedly between fingertips to determine the degree of stickiness. So number 2 signs of estrus is mucus discharge. This one, mucus discharge. Just try to look at the pictures. So example of behavioral and physical signs of approaching estrus in geld versus sow and individual, crate versus group, pins housing system. So mucus discharge, this one. Clear, sticky mucus collects on the vulva of geld. This one, number 4. And sow, number 5. The testing thickness of the mucus by the thumb checking. This one. Okay? Next. Another signs of estrus, riding. Geld and sows coming into or going out of estrus often mount and ride pin mates when group house. Most females will not tolerate being mounted and will vocalize loudly and make moves to escape. So females that do stand immobilized when ridden are in estrus and may develop rough hair and rub marks on their back from being repeatedly ridden. So females housed in crates cannot mount their neighbors but make attempt to bite them or climb on the crate when excited by exposure to a boar. So number 3 signs of estrus is riding. So just try to look this picture. Okay, this one, riding. Picture number 7. So examples of behavioral and physical signs of approaching estrus in geld versus sows. This one. Okay, so another signs of estrus is the female swines are seeking the boar. Most females will move towards a passing boar, whether in heat or not. Okay, so however, females approaching estrus and in estrus will make increased effort to get close to the boar. This boar-seeking behavior has been used to develop an electronic estrus monitoring system that continuously records the frequency and duration of the visits that group house females make to a viewing pole on an adjacent solid. So another signs of estrus is seeking the boar. Just try again to look at this picture. So this one, number 10. Number 10 pictures are all geld in a pin. This one, another pin representing south as a group. So move forward, investigate a passing boar. Okay, this one who is and the outside of the pin is the bore. Okay? Next, another signs of estrus is standing reflex. So some females in estrus will exhibit the standing reflex. What is this standing reflex, class? So without any direct physical stimulation. So without any direct physical stimulation, when a bore passes nerve, the ears may spring into an erect position. So remember, this is the signs of estrus with no direct physical stimulation. The ears may spring into an erect position. In some breeds and females often arc their back slightly and brace their legs through isometric muscles contractions as if preparing to be mounted. Okay? This one. The example of behavioral and physical signs of standing estrus, standing reflex between the geld and a sow. Okay? So, pictures number 13 rather. Females in estrus stands motionless and responds to bore exposure without back pressure in a pin. This one. The erection of ears of the female ear. Okay? Okay. Another way to determine if the female swine is on a standing gait is to apply back pressure test. So this will allow the direct physical contact. So a few females in estrus will stand in the response to back pressure without the presence of a bore. So as what I have said, this will be allowed the direct physical contact. So bore often nudge the flank and underline of females to determine if they are receptive before making a mounting attempt. Okay? So stimulation of these same areas with firm and strokes before applying pressure to the back by hand or by riding facilitates expression of the standing response. Okay? Do you understand? Okay, so this is an examples of behavioral and physical signs of standing estrus in gelt versus sow and individual versus group pins housing system. Conducting back pressure test into the females in estrus standing motionless in response to a bore exposure and back pressure applied by hand or by riding. Okay? Yes. Next. In the presence of the bore, females will generally stand when pressure is applied to their back about 6 to 10 hours before they will stand for the back pressure test without a bore. So this is because the onset of estrus is a gradual transition that occurs over several hours. Even though estrus is measured, take note class, so estrus is measured as a definitive yes or no at each heat check. The amount of a bore stimulation required to get a given female to stand decreases as she comes into estrus and then increases as the female goes out of estrus. Okay? So for this reason, increased intensity of a bore stimulation tends to lengthen the observed duration of the estrus. Okay? Next, Gelton sows can exhibit some or none of the preliminary signs of estrus and ovulate without exhibiting the standing response. But take note that the occurrence of such silent hits seems to be relatively rare. In most situations, it is probably much more common for estrus to be missed due to human error or inadequate bore stimulation and the incorrect assumption made that females are not cycling and an estrus. Okay? Take note of this class that once females exhibit the standing reflex, they will often stand for 10 to 15 minutes and then become unwilling to be mounted, even though they are in estrus. This refractory state fades within a few hours, and females will accept the bore and stand immobilization or immobilize again. This phenomenon may be related to muscles fatigue from the isometric contractions female exhibit during the standing response and fatigue of the behavioral center stimulated in their brain. Just take note of that. Okay? Next. So, let us discuss how to achieve a successful heat detection. So, number one is to get active. Physically stimulate the actions of the bore and have the right attitude and proficiency to do a thorough job. So, repeatedly examine the activity in the natural mating process. So, number one, recommended on how to achieve a successful heat detection is to get active. Number two, be patient and observant throughout the day. Some females may not lock up until the bore has already passed by. Sows returning the estrus may be restless, off feed and seeking attention. Okay? Number 3. Control bore exposure. Work to establish a heat detection routine in the barn. This involves sight, sound, and smell. So, let us control the bore exposure to a female swine. Okay? So, timing is critical. Too much unmonitored exposure is just as detrimental as too little exposure. So, remember by that, class. Okay? Next, keep accurate records also. And is recommended on how to achieve a successful heat detection process. Heat accurate records. So records date of gelt movement, mixing and exposure, hormonal treatment and withdrawal, signs of estrus, weaning or abortions rather. Note add activities such as irritability, off feed, vaginal discharge, and etc. Okay. Another, have the correct attitude and skill. This is very much important in achieving heat detection process. Okay. So, the competent stock person has the eyes to see, the mind to know, how, and the attitude to do. The positive caretaker sow interactions increase productivity, success. Okay? So, another, reduce environmental and social stressors and provide adequate light. Okay? Next, maintain optimum body condition. This should be accomplished through feed and health management. Okay? To maintain body condition of a swine. Another, the last one, on achieving heat detection process is to train the boar to prevent sexual frustration and decrease libido. Boars must periodically be allowed to breed, okay? To maintain pheromone secretion, the odor, and interest. Boars should be rotated every 15 to 20 minutes during heat checks process. Okay? Did you understand?
Since we are done discussing on how to conduct heat detection to determine if the animal is on standing heat, let us explore and measure your knowledge and skills on conducting heat detection. Please answer the activity happy and actively. Congratulations, you are done with this lesson. Once again, I am your teacher in Artificial Insemination, Richard R. Nieras. Thank you and God bless.